Welcome back to Game Crunch, everyone, keeping you up to date with the latest in the video game world. Now today we've got a couple interesting topics that could really kind of change the face of gaming in a few different ways. The first up, we've got a new interview here from Eiji Aonuma, who is the Zelda series producer, and he goes on to talk about how they almost end up giving Link dialogue in Echoes of Wisdom. Then on top of that, Ubisoft. Now if you had to guess, right now with what Ubisoft's going through, do you think this is going to be good news or bad news? What would you put your money on? So either way, I think this might have some interesting implications on how physical media especially is treated in the future. But before we get into that, I appreciate the new subscribers. If you're new to the channel, consider hitting the subscribe button to keep up to date with the latest in the video game world. And if you find this video helpful at all, hit the like button. Let's get right into it. So let's start off with some unexpected Zelda news. In an interview with Famitsu, series producer Eiji Aonuma and director Satoshi Terada revealed that Link was actually set to have dialogue for the first time in a first-party Zelda game. The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom originally featured Link with written lines, a big departure from the usual silent hero approach. According to Terada and Aonuma, the initial idea was that Link would finally speak since Zelda is the main protagonist this time around. They thought it would be interesting if Zelda, not Link, was the silent character. But as they wrote dialogue for Link, it just didn't feel right, they said. Aonuma shared that no one could imagine what Link would actually say, and it felt strange, so they ended up returning to the classic silent protagonist format. Aonuma also mentioned that Echoes of Wisdom is designed to be accessible for players who may have struggled to finish past Zelda games. He said the game is built with a more welcoming difficulty curve so that everyone has a real chance to reach the end of the game. Sounds like Nintendo is trying to make this Zelda installment enjoyable for both hardcore and new players. And yeah, that was pretty much my experience with Zelda Echoes of Wisdom as well. I really enjoyed the game, but I did not find it difficult at all. I kind of assumed that it was more designed for maybe more of a younger audience, and maybe they were trying to capture a little bit more of a feminine audience, maybe trying to capture younger girls, for example, to get them into gaming or get them into the Zelda franchise. But the other statements there with Link not having any dialogue because they couldn't think of what to say also had me thinking, because there's talk of this Zelda movie that they're trying to make along with the Mario series, right? And they're kind of going the more animated way like they did with the Mario movie. So that got me thinking, this is going to be like a 1920s like silent film? Two players in California have filed a proposed class action lawsuit after Ubisoft announced that the crew would be decommissioned and removed from digital stores in March of this year, 2024. Ubisoft had originally informed players that the crew would be taken offline due to server issues and licensing constraints. Now, we tend to see this a lot with games like this that have any licensed music, which tends to be a problem. However, these plaintiffs argue that Ubisoft misled customers by selling the game as a product, when in reality it was more like renting access to a server that Ubisoft could later just shut down. The lawsuit states that since the crew was marketed as a purchase rather than a temporary license, players should have ongoing access to the game, even if it means offline play. Interestingly, Ubisoft has previously deactivated online features in older games like Assassin's Creed 2, but preserved their offline modes. Fans feel like the crew should receive similar treatment. Now, responding to that backlash, Ubisoft has recently announced that they're working on offline modes for the Crew 2 and the Crew Motorfest to ensure long-term access for players. It's a response to the criticism, but doesn't seem to directly address the crew's server shutdown. So we'll have to see how this lawsuit unfolds. So there's one more interesting thing that the plaintiffs say here in their statements, and this is kind of what really kind of sparked my interest in this story, because they argue that the packaging for the crew, and you see this with a lot of games, that the packaging assumes that what you're buying is the game, like the whole game is on the disc, but we're finding that more and more and more, that when you buy a game, you've bought the game, you've got to install the game, and then you've got 50 gigs of updates and patches and whatever else that you've got to install. So this may have some pretty interesting implications for game preservation in the future, because personally, I mean, you can kind of tell, I like to buy my stuff physically, and in 20 years, I want to be able to pop one of these games in and not have to worry about if it's going to play or not. But as always, that's all I've got for you today, so leave your comments down below. What do you think of this whole crew shutdown? Do you think this could potentially be good for gaming? And what would you think? If you had to make Link say some words in a Zelda game, what do you think you would make him say? Anyway, I'll catch you guys on the next one tomorrow. Have a good one.